Mohammed Ben Sulayem's time in charge of the FIA has been riddled with controversy, as he's constantly overstepped his role by interfering in the running of Formula 1. Now though, he's gotten himself into a situation that there may be no escape from. Is this the end of the road for the FIA president? Has he finally gone too far by personally intervening to alter the result of an F1 Grand Prix? Let's check it out. It's no secret that the wider Formula 1 world has been unhappy with how the FIA has been handling its role as the governing body of the sport for years now. There has been controversy after scandal after investigation, which have brought this historic motorsport under a negative light. At a time when F1 is bigger than ever before, when there are more eyes on it than at any point during its 70-plus year existence, the FIA has been bringing it into disrepute. At the centre of all the negativity over the past few years has been the FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Since taking over the international governing body of all things motorsport at the end of the 2021 F1 season, his decision-making and role in Formula 1 has been a constant issue. Now though, he may have finally pushed too far. A whistleblower within the organisation has triggered an investigation into Ben Sulayem after he allegedly intervened to overturn a penalty given to Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso at the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The claim is in a report by an FIA compliance officer to its ethics committee, which was leaked to the BBC on Monday. The allegation made by the whistleblower is that Ben Sulayem called Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the FIA's vice president for sport for the Middle East and North Africa region, who was in Saudi Arabia for the race in an official capacity, and made it clear he thought Alonso's penalty should be revoked. Alonso had been given a 10-second penalty for work done on his car while he was serving a previous 5-second penalty. Before I go any further, it should be absolutely clear that the role and remit of the FIA president does not include the micromanagement of Formula 1 race officials and the decisions they make. The FIA president is not trained in F1 race officiating or on the F1 rulebook. They have no direct authority over anything that happens during an F1 race. They can be involved in decisions made on the appointment of officials who are trained and given authority over Formula 1, but they themselves are not, and therefore are not involved in any of the decision-making that happens during an F1 race. Ben Sulayem may have a better understanding of the F1 rules than the vast majority of people, but Niels Wittich, who was the race director at the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, is the only person who should have had any authority over the decision to penalise Alonso. The report by compliance officer Paolo Bazzari says the whistleblower reported that Ben Sulayem expected the stewards to overturn their decision to issue the penalty to Alonso. It is estimated that the ethics committee will take up to 6 weeks to make a decision on whether or not Ben Sulayem had acted inappropriately or not. What the outcome could be if he is found to have acted outside of his remit is unknown, but the calls for his dismissal will be loud and widespread. This may all sound a bit wild. The president of Formula 1's governing body personally changing the result of an F1 race is the kind of scandal safe for the movies or politics. But all of this has been verified by people within the FIA and F1 management. So what actually happened in Saudi Arabia that caused Ben Sulayem to personally interfere and get the race result changed? The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was the second race of the 2023 F1 season, and Fernando Alonso, driving for Aston Martin, was at the centre of attention after his spectacular return to the podium in the season's opening race. Aston Martin finished 2022 in 7th in the Constructors' Championship, but they started 2023 as the second fastest team on the grid, with fan favourite Alonso leading the charge in spectacular fashion in Bahrain. During the race in Saudi Arabia though, Alonso received an initial 5-second penalty for placing his car partially outside his starting box on the grid for the race. This was served at Alonso's first pit stop, but the two-time champion was then given a 10-second penalty because Aston Martin were judged to have contravened the rules by working on his car. The penalty was imposed because Alonso's car had been touched by the rear jack before the full-time duration had elapsed, in contravention of F1 rules. At the time, the justification given by the stewards for overturning the decision referred to a discussion that had taken place between the F1 teams and the FIA on the subject of working on cars while serving a penalty in the pits. The right of review decision said, "We concluded that there was no clear agreement, as was suggested to the stewards previously, that could be relied upon to determine that parties had agreed that a jack touching a car would amount to working on the car." It was also reported that Aston Martin had gone to the race stewards with footage of numerous other teams touching their cars with jacks during pit stop penalties. At the time, Article 54.4c of the sporting regulations said, "While a car is stationary in the pit lane as a result of incurring a penalty, in accordance with Articles 54.3a or 54.3b above, it may not be worked on until the car has been stationary for the duration of the penalty." After the race and following the Alonso situation, an additional sentence was added. In this context, touching the car or driver by hand or tools or equipment will all constitute working. Had this sentence been in place at the time, there would have been no question that the stewards had made the right initial decision. Whether there was enough evidence for the decision to be overturned without the FIA president's involvement is uncertain. The race result will definitely not be changed at this point though. If Ben Sulayem was directly involved in the decision to overturn the penalty, that would be a big problem. Ben Sulayem, a former rally driver, took over the presidency from Jean Todt in late 2021, and since then, his tenure has been littered with controversy. He took over the FIA during one of the most challenging periods in the organization's history. Ben Sulayem stepped into the immediate aftermath of the season-ending 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen was awarded his maiden world title at Lewis Hamilton's expense. The FIA's handling of that affair, which ended with the governing body dismissing its own race director after what it called a human error, caused a major rift with Mercedes and their team principal Toto Wolff in particular. Ben Sulayem has also had an extremely strained relationship with Formula One and the sports owners Liberty Media, holding up a deal between the teams and commercial rights holder to double the number of sprint weekends for 2023, and commenting on the value of the sport via Twitter. He received a cease and desist letter from F1's lawyers following that reaction on social media to a story claiming Saudi Arabia's public investment fund had tried to buy the sport for $20 billion. The 62-year-old stepped back from day-to-day involvement in the sport around this time last year, saying that it had been his stated objective to be a non-executive president. Shortly after that, the British publication The Telegraph published an investigation into the FIA president following allegations of bullying and misogyny. That was in addition to the emergence of a historical website that quoted him making misogynistic remarks. There was also the bungled episode over the winter when the FIA launched a short-lived investigation into Toto Wolff and his wife, F1 Academy Managing Director Susie Wolff, after saying it had received complaints from rival teams over an alleged conflict of interest. That probe was dropped after 2 days, after all 9 of Mercedes' rivals denied having made a complaint. It is understood that Mercedes and Susie Wolff are still seeking legal action against the FIA for the investigation. Wolff said in January that he was concerned by the departure of so many FIA figures in recent months. Sporting Director Steve Nielsen, the head of the Women's Commission, Deborah Mayer, FIA Single-Seater Director Tim Goss, Gerd Enser, the head of German Motorsports Authority, the ADAC, who quit his role as an FIA steward, and lawyers Pierre Ketterer and Ed Floyd have all left the governing body. You've got to ask yourself, why is it suddenly that so many people have decided to call it a day, Wolff said. Wolff himself has not been completely separate from the controversy surrounding the FIA, with his team being accused of colluding with the organization after they knew about a technical regulation change before they were announced at the 2022 Canadian Grand Prix. Just this week, the FIA president has been accused of personally asking Max Verstappen to publicly defend his team principal amid accusations of inappropriate behavior by Red Bull boss Christian Horner. All of this has resulted in multiple reports of Formula One actively considering a break from the FIA and instead installing their own governing body to manage the sport. The sentiment within the paddock has always been negative toward Ben Sulayem due to his constant meddling in Formula One, and if he is found to have personally changed the result of a race, it may cause irreversible damage to the relationship between the FIA and F1. It might be enough to finally crack open the rift that has been growing and see Formula 1 move away from the FIA. What are your thoughts on all of this? Could this be the final blow that causes the split between the sport and its governing body? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.